Hello everyone, this is John from Twirled and Twisted and welcome to part 2 of my complete Paper Princess tutorial. Today we will be looking at constructing the base of the dress. Starting off, we're going to use some white paper strips. As this is Belle, you can use gold and yellow if you have them in your stash. I do not, so I'm going to be using ordinary strips that were cut from your regular A4 printer paper. These strips are 1 centimetre wide and 30 centimetres in length, and you will need approximately 40 of these strips. So take your first strip and insert the end into your slotted quilling tool. You can see here that the paper comes way above the size of the slot, but that's okay, it will work just as well. And you're going to rotate the tool in whichever direction you prefer to make a tight coil. Once you're near the end of the strip, you're going to leave a tail and use the tucking technique I showed in my last video to add in the next strip and continue rolling. And once again, as you're near the end, you're going to leave a tail and tuck in the next strip. We're going to continue in this fashion for all 40 strips. Once you've finished, you're going to take some PVA glue and apply it to the end of your coil and then smooth it down with your finger. Next, you're going to lay your coil on a hard, flat surface and roll the edges flat using the handle of your slotted quilling tool, just like I demonstrated in the last video. Now we're going to get to shaping our coil into a cone. We're going to start by using our thumbs, just as we did in the last video, to push up the centre of the coil and form a shallow dome. Next, I place my thumb and forefinger opposite each other on either side of the cone, and I'm going to be using a pincer grip to slide or shift the paper strips slightly apart, moving further and further down the coil and rotating it with my left hand so that the piece is all shifted evenly all the way down to the base. Now that sounds a lot more complicated than it is, but once you have a go, you will find that it's really quite simple to do. So you're going to continue rotating and shifting and adjusting the strips until you are happy that you have an even, smooth looking cone shape. After that, you're going to place your forefinger inside the cone at the very tip, and you're going to tap it on a hard flat surface to flatten it. This will make it easier to attach the upper body later on. Just a couple of notes to consider when creating your cone shape. One is to be mindful to shift all sides equally so it doesn't curve to one side as shown on screen here. 2 is to be aware of how even all your segments are. If you look towards the top section here, you'll notice that it's shifted much further than the rest of it, and we want to avoid this as it looks clumsy, it looks messy, and it makes your piece look of a much lower quality. And the third thing is to keep in mind that your paper strips are only 1 centimetre wide. If you push it further than that, then it will come apart, just like this. This is known as popping the coil, and there is absolutely no way to fix this. If this does happen to you, you will have to take these same strips, nothing will be wasted, but you will have to re-roll your coil again. So just be aware about that. So once you're happy with the overall shape, take a ruler and measure the length. Now to get the right proportion, we're looking for the cone to be around about 5 centimetres in length. It doesn't have to be exact, so feel free to adjust the size of your cone as you see fit. So after checking that you're happy with the size and shape, you can then add PVA glue so that it will retain that shape. I like to add a small drop to the outside tip and smooth that into a thin layer, and then apply a generous amount to the inside and use your finger to spread it round into a nice even layer. Now I do use a little bit extra than is necessary. It doesn't really affect the outcome, but it will affect the amount of drying time needed. So once you've done all that, you can lie your cone down on its side to dry, And you must wait until all of the glue has completely dried and turned clear and shiny before you can move on to the next stage. If you're watching this tutorial to learn how to apply the knowledge to create your own projects, or you're looking to make a different princess, here are some tips that I have for you. So on screen here is the cone shape that we made with 40 strips of paper. Now you can change the size of this skirt by adjusting the number of strips you use. So by using 30 strips, you'll get a much smaller and slimmer looking dress, which is the kind that I use for Snow White and Rapunzel. By using more strips, or around the 50 mark, you can create bigger and more prominent ball gown type dresses, which I find useful for Cinderella and Tiana. I find that 40 is sufficient for Belle, as the added details later on will increase the size of hers anyway. Another tip for you is, depending on how you shift sections of the dress, it can change the overall shape. So for example, pushing the centre up further and then decreasing the amount that you shift it towards the base gives you a more concave shape, more of a flare at the bottom, like the one on the left. Then of course, adjusting everything sort of evenly gives you this straighter cone shape that we have in the middle. And then by shifting the top only a tiny bit, but shifting the outside edges further, gives you more of a rounded dome shape, such as the one on the right. So feel free to play around and find out what works best for your project. So now that we've chosen our perfect size and shape and allowed for it to dry, we can move on to painting it. But this step isn't necessary if you've already used coloured strips to make the base. But if, like me, you're going to paint it, first we're going to need some kind of plastic surface to work on, something that's easily cleaned that the paper won't stick to. So newspaper is not suitable in this instance. I'll be using a piece of acetate to work on. So we're going to take some acrylic paint. I'm using cadmium yellow in a medium hue. And I'm using acrylic because it's fast drying, the colours are opaque and bright, and it dries with a plasticky kind of nature, which gives the paper some slight resistance to moisture and also reinforces its structure. And I'm going to take my flat-ended paintbrush and I'm going to cover the outside in a nice even layer, taking care to avoid lumps of paint drying on the surface. Most of it will be covered, so it doesn't have to be perfect, so you only need 1 or 2 coats depending on how translucent or opaque your paint is. So once it's all completely covered, you can set this down to dry, and it will probably be dry within a couple of minutes. So make sure you wash your brush out straight away. Congratulations to everyone who has successfully completed part 2 of this tutorial series. If you are following along, please leave me a comment in the comment section below and let me know how it's going for you. Stick around for part 3, which will be making the torso and joining the pieces together. That will be uploaded tomorrow, so please subscribe to my channel if you haven't already so you get notified as soon as I upload that. Thank you so much to everyone for watching these videos, and until next time, I'll see you in my next video. Bye guys!